Hey, I'm Chris Ralph, the professional prospector. And do you want to find a lot of gold in 2020 and beyond? Well, if you're going to go hunting for that elusive yellow metal, well, you better know a lot about it. And today I'm going to talk about 12 things that are little known that a lot of people don't know or understand about gold. Now, you may be saying to yourself, hey, Chris, I know what I need to know about gold. I'm already educated. I know it. Well, I'm going to tell you some things that you probably don't know, or at least we're not fully aware of. We're going to really get into the weeds on what gold is and what it does and what you need to know to find that yellow metal. Let me go over a couple of things that we're going to talk about in this video so you can see what I mean, how they're little known. The first of these things is, hey, is gold magnetic? Well, you may not think it is, but yes it is. And I'm going to prove it to you. And then I'm going to ask, hey, does gold float? Well, of course it floats. Now, you might ask, is gold transparent? Can you see through gold? Well, yes, of course you can. Then I'm going to say, hey, is gold edible? Well, of course it is. People eat it all the time, especially rich people. And then I'm going to ask, is gold bulletproof? Sure, it can be bulletproof. And then we'll talk about, well, what color is gold? Well, the truth is, it can be any color you want it to be. Then we'll talk about, is gold important industrially? Is it important in electronics? Well, yeah, everything electronic you use couldn't be there if it wasn't for gold. Then we're going to talk about how pure is natural gold. You see beautiful natural nuggets being found on internet videos on YouTube. How pure is that stuff? Well, we're going to talk about that. Then we'll ask, why is gold so valuable? Because it really is pretty valuable, and hey, it's getting more valuable all the time. Then we'll talk about, what is gold really used for? Is it really just something that rich people put in banks and in the form of bricks and wait for some day when the stock market crashes? Well, gold is valuable for a reason, and we're going to talk about that and a whole lot more. So stand by, because today you're going to learn 12 special secrets or things that are little known that most people don't know about gold. So my first question is gold magnetic? Now, it seems to be a question that just like everybody on the internet is interested in. And there's videos that say yes, and there's videos that say no. And so it's kind of a point of confusion. Part of that is, what do you mean by magnetic? So I'm going to answer this question once and for all. Is gold magnetic? I'm going to show you. Okay, so I'm going to do a little experiment here. I've got several pieces of gold. I've got a very powerful rare earth magnet. This is a really strong, big rare earth magnet, super powerful. It will lift many pounds of steel, okay? So it's very powerful. And I've got here a $5 US gold coin, minted in 1908, the year my grandfather was born. I've got a 3/4 ounce gold nugget I found with a metal detector in Alaska a couple of years ago. And I've got 4 smaller nuggets from Australia that I also found there with a metal detector in Western Australia. And we're going to do an experiment. And I'm going to show you once and for all what the reality is about magnetic gold. Okay, so first, the magnet and the coin. And you can see there's nothing. The magnet has no interest. I've got the pan tilted a little much, so the magnet is, but the magnet does not pull the coin away. And then, so let's try our Alaskan natural gold nugget. That's an example of refined gold. American gold coins are about 90%, I think, gold. All right, here's the Alaska nugget. And again, the magnet has no interest in the gold. It just There's no attraction at all. So then I have the 4 small nuggets from Australia. Okay, now let's take the big magnet and see what they do. And you can see the nuggets stuck to the magnet. Here's the 4 nuggets again. And you can see they come up. And in fact, I'll put them on here and you can see how the magnet pulls them. See, the magnet, they're definitely magnetic. So, what's the takeaway from this? Well, let me tell you. So is the takeaway from this that refined gold and big nuggets aren't magnetic, but little nuggets are? No, that's not it. Is it that gold from Alaska is not magnetic, but gold from Australia is? Yeah, that's not it either. What happens is there are minerals that form with gold, and iron minerals are very common with gold. And in fact, prospectors, you guys from Australia know how common ironstone is in the areas around your gold. And you know, and guys in Arizona, in the United States, there's a fair amount of Arizona gold that's closely associated with ironstone too. And ironstone just basically means a mix of iron oxide minerals. And what you see is basically one of the most important iron oxide minerals is magnetite. And magnetite, as the name implies, is magnetic. And if you have a gold nugget and it grows around a piece of magnetite, well then the gold isn't magnetic, but the magnet comes close to the magnetite and up goes the magnetite to meet the magnet. And those 4 little nuggets from Australia, they're all mixed with some magnetite ironstone in there with the gold. It kind of grew around them or grew with them. And so they're mixed together. And when I put the magnet to the magnetite, of course, the magnetite is magnetic, absolutely. And that's how you end up with magnetic gold, or at least what appears to be magnetic gold. There's no trick photography to this. This is not, you know, painted rocks or anything goofy like that. And there's no trick camera angles or anything. It's just a matter of nuggets that grow with magnetite. The magnetite will drag them along. Now, there is a kind of a thing where if the nugget is big enough and there's not enough magnetite, the magnetite will have a hard time dragging all that gold with it. So it's less common in bigger nuggets, but I've never, and I know people who've had this happen where they've been metal detecting and the target gets sucked onto the magnet on their pick and it disappears in the ground and they look and then, hey, there's a nugget attached to their pick. Well, it's a magnetite gold nugget. So they happen, and they're not that unusual. I picked these out of my bottle of nuggets that I got from Western Australia. Now, another thing about the magnetic properties of gold is that any conductive metal, and gold is conductive, any conductive metal that you pass a moving electric field over, so if I were to take that magnet and go over like this, over the gold, it induces a little bit of electric current in the conductive object, in this case gold, and the conduction of the electricity in the gold itself produces a little bit of a magnetic field coming back. So that's actually how generators and alternators work, is they things spin around, and motors too, except they run in reverse. In a generator, you spin magnets around next to wires, usually copper. It's almost always copper in a generator. Spin around and you generate electricity, and that's how you make electricity. A generator, you know, that has a little gas motor on it, you know, it generates electricity by spinning magnets around next to wires. The reverse of that for a motor is that instead of putting energy in to spin things around, you put electricity in, going the other direction, and the electricity coming in makes things spin. So motors and generators are actually very closely related. Anyway, when you induce a little bit of a current in a gold object and it makes a little bit of an electric field, that's actually how metal detectors work. Metal detectors have electric fields in the coil and they induce that into a nugget, and the nugget generates a little bit of a magnetic field itself just because it's conductive, and that's what the metal detector sees. But if you turn the electricity off and don't do any motion or anything, there's no magnetism to the gold. Anyway, I hope that clarifies the truth about is gold magnetic, because it kind of means what you want it to mean. Like I say, if you move a gold piece past a magnetic field, you will induce some sort of a magnetic field temporarily in the gold while you're moving something past it. But gold nuggets are usually only magnetic if they're wrapped around a piece of magnetite. So will gold float? Will it float on the surface of water? Gold's pretty heavy. It's really dense. How can it float on the surface of water if it's heavy and dense? I mean, if you made like a boat of it, it would float the same way steel floats. But do natural flakes and nuggets just float on water sometimes? Well, let's do an experiment and I'll show you. Okay, does gold float? Let's take a look and see. Here's some gold. I've got, this is actually about, here I'll show you. It's about 2 pennyweight, about 1/10 of an ounce of gold in this little bottle. We're going to see if that gold will float. Well, what do you think? You can see a lot of it's floating on the surface of the water. I don't even got to bother putting the rest of the vial in there. You can see as it moves that stuff is floating right on the surface. So how does that work? What's the lesson of this? How can you make gold float on the surface of water? That just doesn't make any sense, does it? Well, I'll explain it. So how does gold float on the surface of water? Well, gold actually doesn't wet very well. Some things you put water on it, the surface wets very easily. Gold kind of repels water. It doesn't wet very easily. And actually, it uses that property to float. So what happens is, if you put dry, flat flakes on the surface of water, the surface tension and gold repelling the water will allow the gold to float on the surface. And what happens is, if you add some sort of a wetting agent or you stir the surface up, the gold will be overcome by the water and will sink. Okay, so I can take this pan here and stir the water up and mix it all around, and that gold will go to the bottom of the pan. So that's how gold floats. Yes, it does. Because of the surface tension and because of the property that gold has that it repels water, yeah, it tends to float in little tiny pieces. Bigger, heavier pieces, the surface tension can't hold them up. But little tiny flat flakes, they'll float. So did you know that gold is transparent? Now you're probably saying to yourself, hey, Chris, you're crazy. I've seen a lot of gold. It's not transparent. You can't see through gold. Well, actually, if you make it thin enough, it is transparent. And actually, that's an important use because there's glass that's infused with gold where it reflects the material. Astronaut helmets, take a look at this, are actually put with a real thin amount of gold, enough that the astronaut can see out, but it acts like a one-way type of glass where a lot of the sun's rays coming in are reflected. And so, yes, gold can be transparent. Another use is that they actually put gold into glass, and if it's finely divided in individual particles, it actually can color the glass red. Another thing that we should talk about is gold edible. Can you eat gold? Well, gold's a pretty inert substance, so, it pretty much goes right through your system. So it's not poisonous. It doesn't react with other parts of your body and cause damage. But it is used in food, surprisingly more common than you would think. I can show you some pictures of gold, very, very, very super thin foil that's put on food as a decorative item. Here's a gold donut. And you can see from some of these examples that, it is used in high dollar food as a decorative thing, most commonly actually in desserts. And I'll say that I've eaten some desserts that have gold foil on them for decorative purposes. Now, it's true that the amount of gold that's used in these is super thin. And we're going to talk in a little bit about how thin and how malleable gold is, because it's actually the most malleable metal or element that's out there. So is gold bulletproof? Well, gold, I said, is very malleable. It bends easily, and when it's pure anyway. And so it actually is bulletproof if you have a thick enough thickness of it. Obviously, if you have like the super thin thickness that they use as a decorative thing in desserts, no, that's not going to stop even your finger, let alone a bullet. But if you have a thick enough piece of gold, because it's malleable, it will stop a bullet. But it's really mostly on the basis of how thick it is, being thick enough to stop the penetration of the bullet as it goes in, because it absorbs, it absorbs and bends and deforms in order to stop the energy of the bullet. So what color is gold? I mean, you might ask again, Chris, what are you thinking? Gold. It's gold colored. Because there's actually a word that means gold, right? And it can mean a color. But there's more to it than that. You see, gold is used in jewelry a lot, and even in nature, different alloys of gold, because gold found in nature is never 100% perfectly pure. It always has different elements in it that are mixed in with the gold. And I've found gold nuggets that have a decidedly greenish cast. I'll show you a couple of them right here. You see, these have a little bit of elevated silver content. And if you elevate the silver content some, but not a huge amount, you end up with this greenish cast. In fact, if you add a whole bunch of silver, then of course it will overload the gold color and you'll get a silvery white gold, which white gold is very common in jewelry. And actually there's a whole mix. In fact, there's a type of jewelry called Black Hills gold that's made with gold that has a little bit of silver, enough to give it a greenish cast. Other pieces that have extra copper that give it a reddish cast. And then regular gold colored material that has the normal gold color. And they're used as different accents in different kinds of jewelry. And Black Hills type jewelry is really pretty common in jewelry stores. But, it's not even just the white gold, the red gold, and the regular gold color and white gold. As you can see in this chart, see, I've got a chart here that kind of shows the percentages of what each one is and how the different percentages affect the color. But it's more than just that. It's more than just what you see on that chart. You can actually add other elements like aluminum or cadmium or other types of things to gold and get bluish colored gold. Like this. This is actually a 14 karat ring that's been treated and has a bluish color to it. There are versions of gold alloys that have a purplish cast to them. So there's all different kinds of colors, reddish, yellowish, whitish, bluish, purplish, there's just a variety depending on what you alloy the gold with and how much of the other metals are in with the gold that make a huge difference. Now, you don't see the blue or the purple very much in jewelry because they tend to be a little bit on the brittle side. And so if you have a ring and you hit it against something, you could actually break the ring because the metal becomes brittle instead of the normal bendable, malleable gold that you're used to. So, like I say, gold can be pretty much any color you want it to be. Okay, so can gold be dissolved in water? Well, let's clarify that a little bit. In regular water, no, gold won't dissolve. But it's been known for centuries that a mixture of certain chemicals that was called aqua regia is capable of dissolving gold. It reacts with the gold metal and dissolves it, and it becomes a gold chemical in solution in the water. And that's been known that can happen for centuries. In fact, a version of this kind of technique was used by early artists to gild and gold color things. All right. So yes, if you have the right chemicals, gold can be dissolved in a watery solution. Not pure water, but in waters mixed with chemicals. There are other chemicals that will dissolve gold. In fact, cyanide is the biggest source of how gold is extracted from the rock on the planet. And they only mix a little bit of cyanide with the gold, or with the water, in order to dissolve the gold. It takes a little time, but the cyanide will dissolve the gold. There are other chemicals as well. So there's a variety of different chemicals, and in the earth, slightly acidic sulfur compounds actually are capable, mixed with water, of dissolving small amounts of gold. And that's how most gold quartz veins and other gold deposits are formed, is by the gold being dissolved and carried along in these acidic sulfur solutions. And the sulfur then, it's not a very stable compound, and it will dissolve and carry it for a ways, and then the compound, which is not very stable, will fall apart and the gold metal will come back out. And that's how basically a lot of gold deposits are formed. One of the things that it shows, you see in a lot of gold veins, there's pyrite and other sulfur minerals. Well, the sulfur's there, it carries the gold too. So anyway, yes, gold can be dissolved if you have some chemicals to mix in with your water. I mentioned before that gold is incredibly malleable. It can be flattened into unbelievably thin sheets. Like I say, they use it for decorative purposes. But those same kind of thin sheets also get used for building decoration and gilding signs. Buildings that are like temples and churches and places of worship, are commonly gilded for their beauty. And many famous buildings of worship all over the planet are, in part at least, covered with this thin gold foil, and it adds beauty. It also protects, because gold is of course so resistant to corrosion and that sort of thing. The gilding on the surface helps protect whatever's underneath. So gold can be, like I say, drawn out incredibly thin, and they have lots of, you can buy on the market sheets of thin gold, and it's not actually that expensive, simply because the gold is so thin. It's just amazing. They can actually beat gold, and it is a pressing process. It's not a plating type of thing, although gold can be plated too. They actually take the gold and hammer it and beat it. That's how they did in ancient days. They would put flat pieces of gold between layers of leather in the ancient days and hit it with a leather or with a wooden hammer, a mallet, and thereby flatten the gold out to be incredible thin sheets. These days, with presses and that sort of thing, industrial types of equipment to do that flattening and mashing of the gold. Um, we can produce sheets so thin that it would take more than 7,000 sheets to equal the thickness of a dime. A dime is, it's for my US viewers, you know how thin a dime is. For reference, for viewers outside, it's about 1 1/3 millimeters. 7,000 sheets to equal 1 1/3 millimeters. That's incredible. And they can also be drawn into thin wires. They can actually take an ounce of pure gold and draw it into a wire, continuous wire, 50 miles long, over 50 miles. So how small of a wire diameter would that be if you had just 1 ounce of gold and you made it 50 miles long? Just amazing. So gold is incredibly bendable and malleable and flattenable and drawable. It has those characteristics, and it is the most malleable metal that exists. How pure is natural gold? I mean, you've seen gold nuggets found out of the ground. I find gold nuggets, other people do too. How pure is natural gold? Well, it's never 100% pure. It never is. I mean, there are some cases that are like almost 99.8 or something like that. Very close, pretty pure, but it's never actually 100% pure. There's always a little bit of impurity. And usually those impurities are silver and sometimes copper, but sometimes iron and palladium and some other things that are in there in small amounts. And it's always got some impurity. But how impure is it? Well, it can vary a lot. Most placer nuggets, most alluvial gold nuggets are in the range of about 20 to 23 carats pure, which in a percentage is about 80 to 93% pure, 95% pure, somewhere around there. And the high end, there's not as much of that. And the really low end, most of it's in the kind of the middle, kind of the 85, 90%. A lot of alluvial gold falls in that category. But there are other types, I say, that I've found myself, nuggets that have a greenish cast to them because they have so much silver content. And if they have even more silver content than the greenish cast, then they start looking white. And white colored gold is not that uncommon. Whitish tint gold is not that uncommon in Nevada. Nevada is a state with a lot of silver. And it just is a natural thing. There's actually a word for a natural gold silver alloy. It's called electrum. And electrum is not that uncommon in Nevada. So natural gold, it varies, and there are some examples of natural gold that's, maybe 50-50 or even more silver than gold. But most of the gold nuggets that you see or hear about or are found, the alluvial nuggets, they tend to be in that 80, 85, 90 kind of a percentage purity. So why is gold so valuable? I mean, currently as I'm taping this, it's about $1,550 US dollars per troy ounce. That works out to be, in US dollars again, around $50 a gram. Pretty expensive stuff. Valuable. Why is it so valuable? Well, gold is very durable. It doesn't rust and corrode and fall apart. I mean, there are gold bars that sit on the bottom of the ocean for hundreds of years, and all they have is that there's been barnacles growing on them, and they don't have any corrosion. Whereas even silver bars sitting on the bottom of the ocean for a long time, they get corroded from the seawater. It's a very durable metal. I mean, that's partly why we have alluvial kinds of deposits, placer deposits, is because the gold, after it comes out of a vein or some other kind of deposit, it goes into a river, it doesn't corrode and fall apart over time. It stays in there. It finds its way into crevices and cracks and bedrock and that sort of thing, and just sits there. It lasts for a long, long time because it doesn't corrode. So it's durable, it doesn't corrode, it's beautiful. Hey, it is pretty stuff. It's rare. It's not like there's gobs and gobs of it. It's pretty dense. So a relatively small size, a 1 kilo bar that has many thousands of dollars, can easily just slip right in your pocket. No problem. So it's a very portable store of wealth that is easy to transport. If you get huge amounts, like millions of dollars, it can add up to be a weight that's imposing. But you can transport reasonable, pretty good sized amounts of money real easily with gold. For thousands of years, gold has been money. Man has recognized gold and gold objects as being highly valuable for, they say, more than 5,000 years. And it's been made into money for centuries. It was something like 800 BC that they took the first bits of gold and made them a uniform size and stamped an image on them, the first coins. And the coins have been used by all peoples, civilized peoples, ever since. The Romans used them, and they made gold coins. The Spanish made loads and loads of gold coins that have been very beautiful and famous over the years. And so it's been recognized as real money, as a real source of wealth for thousands of years and accepted worldwide. It doesn't matter whether you're in the Far East, in China, in Spain, in Europe, in Africa, or South America, or wherever. Cultures have always accepted gold as an extremely valuable and beautiful thing. And in fact, something like 45% of all the gold that exists on the planet right now that's stored away, that people have, exists in the vaults of banks that are storing it as a monetary backdrop. And what happens is different countries like, hey, I'm France, and why should I trust you, Yugoslavia, or Yugoslavia isn't, why should I trust you, Greece? And Greece says, well, why should I trust you, Turkey? And they don't like each other. And or why should I trust you, United States? Whatever the money, unit of money, countries have gold to back it up. And if worse comes to worse, they have gold. And you can print a zillion paper dollars, but there's only so much gold. And if you want more, you have to go mine it. So it's valuable because it's accepted everywhere by cultures all over the planet as money. So what is gold actually used for? What is it? What is it used for? Well, something like 78% of all newly mined gold gets made into jewelry. That's what the bulk of newly mined gold gets made into. Around 12% gets used in various applications, and most like dental and other consuming applications, most of which, about 10 of that 12%, is electronics. Everything that you have that's electronic, be it your cell phone, your television, your computer, your tablet, you name it, your camera that I'm filming this on, all of those use gold. And they use it, the TV behind me. All of them use gold for contacts, because chips and other things that have to touch and make an electrical contact, and the electricity has to flow through those contacts. Gold is great because it's so resistant to corrosion. If they used iron, it would rust. If they used silver, it would corrode. If they used, they could use some other things like platinum, but they're super rare. So they use gold, and gold is easy to plate on and that sort of thing. And so electric connectors, electric connections throughout all of your electronic devices will have gold. And about 10%, like I say, about 10% of all newly mined gold goes to that. 2% to dental and other uses. And then making desserts that have, that have gold foil, or decorating buildings, like I say, that have guilt signs and that sort of thing. And then the last 10% gets used in just for countries. Like I say, the countries that keep it as a store, high net worth individuals that keep gold as a store of wealth. The last 10% is used for financial security. So I hope you've learned a little bit about gold today and some of the unique characteristics of this very unusual but beautiful and rare metal that's accepted as money by people all over the world. I hope you learned a little bit more about it, and if you want to go out and find your own gold and acquire your own gold by your own efforts, then I wrote a book about it, and it will help you to find gold wherever you are. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about my book right now.
Okay, so I wanted to tell you a little bit more about my book. I wanted to be able to share the knowledge that I've gained about finding gold and how to be successful. And so I spent years literally writing this book, Fistful of Gold. It's more than 350 pages long, which is why I say it's an encyclopedia of everything you need to know about finding your own gold. I've sold more than 8,000 copies, and I've got a lot of really great feedback on it. It just is the most complete book on the market. It has information about finding gold that literally is not available in any other book that you're going to find for prospectors, because I took technical stuff from geologists and other mineral scientists, and I've translated that into language that the average guy can understand. You don't need a PhD to go out and find gold, but the information that scientists have learned over recent decades can be of a lot of help to people. So it's in this book. If you're interested about finding gold, panning, sluicing, nugget detecting, dry washing, the geology of gold deposits and how they form, it's all in here. And like I say, it's more than 350 pages long. So if you'll just go to the description underneath this video, you can take a look. I've got a link in there to take you to Amazon, to the site where the book is sold. And I think you'll really enjoy it. Take a look at all the people who've commented on this and have really liked the book. It has a very, very high rating for a book. And also, I have a website, my own free website that you can take a look at. I've got all kinds of information on here about doing research and how to find gold, a lot of good information, stuff that basically couldn't fit into my book. And so I put it on this website, and I have a link also for that in the video description. So take a look in the description, and you can click on the link, and it'll take you to my website. And finally, if you like this presentation, I've got a lot more coming out. Here's 3.5 ounces of gold that I found a couple years back in one area. I've got a lot more of these videos coming on gold, gemstones, hard rock, placer, a lot of metal detecting. There'll be lots of metal detecting stuff. So if you really enjoyed this, click the subscribe button and then tick the notification bell off, and YouTube will let you know when I publish new stuff. And hit the like button as well. And please comment on these videos, because I'm interested in what you have to say, and I promise to answer any questions you have. So if you are wondering about anything, or think maybe I didn't cover something thoroughly enough in a video, then let me know, and I'll be happy to try and help you out and give you whatever information you need. So thanks a lot, and hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you again real soon.